tell yourself it could never be you. You convince yourself it'll never happen to you, only until it is you and it happens to you. According to the United Nations, 1 in 28 people suffer from depression. My best friend is one out of those 28, and I'm here today to talk about his journey with depression. I've known him my entire life. We've grown up together and formed an inseparable bond. Through our teenage years, he was an overachiever in every sense of the word. Captain of every sports team, a straight-A student, head boy, you name it. His upbringing couldn't have been better. A family that personified love, a stable and loving marriage, and close relationships with his siblings. He was at the height of privilege, and few had the opportunities he had. On paper, he had it all. So what went wrong? Well, let's start in 2017. Your matric year is stressful as is. In his case, he had to spread his efforts across his sporting and academic endeavors, with the added stress of being head of school. This was the year his depression began. He slowly changed, becoming a person who was just going through the motions, emotionless, numb. His parents helped him by getting on medication, which seemed to give him some relief, but by no means erased any of his problems. And just like that, his matric year came and went. Then came 2018. He left home to pursue his tertiary studies at the University of Cape Town. He was now off medication, as it appeared that his former and true self was slowly but surely coming back. The stress and the responsibilities of his matric year were now behind him. He had so much to look forward to as a freshman in university, drinking and partying and immersing himself in the university experience. And just like that, his first year at university came and went just as quickly. Journal entry, January 24th, 2019. Why am I like this? What is wrong with me? I'm sick of this. I'm sick of life. I can't do this anymore. What's the point of all of this? Why? That was my best friend's journal entry. Who knew I'd be standing here today reading out my own journal entry? I'll tell you what, certainly not me. 2019 was the year depression became very real for me. I slowly changed. I became a stranger to myself. The days of nothing. And when I say nothing, it's because that's the closest word that comes to summing up what I felt like during that year. Nothing seemed worth it anymore. The things I cared about, I couldn't be bothered by. The things I loved, I couldn't love anymore. The things that made me happy didn't. I was empty. Before heading back to Cape Town for my second year at university, I bounced between doctors. I went back on medication. I saw a therapist, had all the resources to get help and get better, but nothing brought back that best friend that I once knew. There were days where I wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk, days where I couldn't get out of bed, days where I'd hate myself for waking up, days where I'd just cry, days where I'd feel such rage and such hatred, days where I'd feel guilt. My concerned parents sat me down and questioned whether or not I should return to university. They suggested I take a leave of absence, a kind of gap year for my mental well-being. But you know what my thought process was? What do I tell my friends? What will people think about me? What will people say about me? I couldn't do that, and I didn't do that. So I came back and continued with my studies. I lived in the house with a few of my best friends. Depression was not something they had ever experienced or dealt with. I used to lock myself in my room. I couldn't get out of bed. There were days where I used to lie in bed bursting for the toilet, but the thought of getting out of bed was too terrifying. I couldn't care less if my bladder burst. Nothing mattered anymore. I gave up on my studies. I hated myself. I hated that I felt like this. How can someone in my position feel like this? There are people out there who don't have the life I do, and I'm here feeling sorry for myself. My friends would bang on my door asking what was wrong. My response was always, I'm okay. Later on in the year, within the space of a month, I found out that my girlfriend had been cheating on me for some time. And then my grandpa passed away. Wow, that period sucked. It hurt a lot. And I was sad. It was the first time in a long time I felt something, some sort of emotion, a reaction. I felt sadness, but you see, that sadness wasn't my depression. Sure, it added to it, but that sadness wasn't the cause of my depression. That sadness was a part of life. Depression and sadness are not the same thing. Everyone experiences sadness during their lives. Sure, it hurts, but it doesn't change how they function. And it's normally what people refer to as a part of life. Depression, on the other hand, is not a normal experience. It changes how you function over a prolonged period. And it's not just a part of life. 28 out of 28 people experience sadness during their lives, but only 1 in 28 experience depression. Depression is a chemical imbalance in your brain. It's a lifelong battle, and it won't go away because you lied and said, I'm okay. 2019 went on, and one day I managed to get out of bed. And for the first time in what seemed like a lifetime, I managed to not lie. I told the truth. I told my 3 roommates, I'm not okay. They didn't know what to do, but that was okay. I didn't need my friends to save me. I just didn't want to be alone anymore. And telling them didn't take away my depression, but it made life a whole lot easier to navigate. So I kept on going. I reached out to a few of my other close friends and told them the truth. I had become a master in pretending to be okay for so long, but the show was finally over. My roommate, Joe, was, in a way, the reason I continued my battle with depression. 52, that's the number. 52 consecutive nights of Joe and I sleeping in the same room. One night in mine, the next in his. The days of locking myself in my room were over. Joe wouldn't allow it. We didn't talk about it. I didn't want to, and I didn't know how to. And neither did he. But he kept saying this one thing that is still so significant to this day. Small victories. He would say something like, come on, Luke, let's get out of bed and go have a shower, or get changed, or have something to eat, which always ended with the statement, small victories. Like a deck of cards, each morning was different. He didn't care if some days I didn't listen because he could tell immediately what type of day it was going to be for me. Some days I would listen and I'd go have a shower or get changed and then get back into bed. He was okay with that, and so was I. Doing one simple thing a day often seemed like an insurmountable task. But other days it wasn't so bad. 52 consecutive days of that. Small victories eventually meant that I started doing those previously impossible tasks by myself. I still live by these words today, small victories. Like realizing I didn't want to be pitied, looked after, or saved. Sometimes I didn't even want advice or conversation. I just needed and valued presence. People to be present with. That was 2019. Fast track to 2020, I continued my battle with depression and I began drafting this very talk. And look, I made it out alive. And the same goes for 2021 thus far. I mean, really? Look at me now. I'm doing a TED talk. The small victories all compounded. Back in 2019, I finally accepted that I was one out of those 28 people struggling with depression, which is the greatest small victory of all. And that's the reason I'm here today, to share my battle, my journey with you, and to show you that depression has no target market. I can't stress it enough. Depression doesn't have a target market. Whether you've reached the pinnacle of your occupation, graduated cum laude, or you're the leading surgeon in the country, you just passed your grade 2 piano examination, you just got your dream job, or if you've always just been a happy person, depression can pick anyone. It can pick those that least expect it. Even a guy doing a TED talk on how he thought would never be him. On paper, everything was perfect. It couldn't have been better. I had and still have a quality of life I'm so grateful for. But that means nothing when it comes to depression. And tonight I'll probably go home and my journal entry will go something like this. Today I stood up and I delivered a TED talk about my journey with depression. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to call it a big victory. Thank you.